when Burkina Faso's transitional president Ibrahim Traoré arrived at an event meant to celebrate his national achievements. He was unexpectedly blocked at the entrance by a confused security guard. What could have been a scandal turned into a legendary moment that had the entire crowd in tears and left social media in shock. What he did next would remind the world what true leadership looks like. It was a hot Tuesday afternoon in Ouagadougou. The streets were alive with energy. Flags of Burkina Faso danced in the wind, and children wore t-shirts emblazoned with the words, "Our hero, Ibrahim Traoré." This was no ordinary day. It was the day of honor, an event to celebrate President Traoré's efforts in reclaiming peace, feeding the poor, and restoring dignity to the people. Thousands had gathered at the National Civic Arena, eagerly awaiting the celebration. But as a black, unmarked Toyota pulled up to the VIP entrance, a lone security officer raised his hand. He stepped forward, firm. "Excuse me, sir, I can't let you in without a badge." Inside the car sat President Ibrahim Traoré. No escort, no loud sirens. He had come quietly, just as he always did. "I am Ibrahim Traoré," he said gently. The guard furrowed his brows, chuckling nervously. "Sir, the president doesn't come like this." People nearby began to watch. Cameras from phones were pointed in their direction. The president didn't get angry. He didn't call for backup, simply stood still, thinking. And then he did something no one expected. Instead of showing his ID or forcing his way through, President Traoré smiled. He slowly stepped away from the entrance and began walking, yes, walking down the side of the building. Past confused vendors, past surprised guards, past murmuring journalists whispering, "Is that really him?" His aides rushed forward trying to explain the situation, but Traoré stopped them with a simple hand gesture. "No," he said softly, "let the people see me this way." A child ran up barefoot, holding a piece of roasted corn. "President," he shouted, "why are you outside?" Traoré bent down to the child's level and replied, "Because today is not about me. It's about all of us." A grandmother wept from behind a fence as Traoré kept walking. Around the back of the arena, more people began to follow him now. Security, no stage, just the man and the people. When he reached a small side gate, the guards there recognized him instantly and jumped to attention. But Traoré raised a finger and said, "Please, don't open the gate. I want to enter like everyone else." Inside the arena, the master of ceremonies was about to announce his arrival. Little did they know, the real story was unfolding outside. Organizers grew nervous. The president was late, very late. His special seat at the front, handmade by local artists, remained empty. Spotlight beamed down on it, and people whispered, "Where is he?" Outside, Traoré stood in line with everyday citizens. No one was asked to move. He waited quietly beside a farmer and two schoolboys. The farmer, unaware, asked him, "You're here for the event?" Traoré nodded. "Yes, I'm hoping to learn something." The man chuckled. "Me too. They say the president is a good man?" Traoré smiled again. When he finally entered the arena, not through the VIP gate, but through the public entrance, a gasp rippled through the crowd. Children stopped eating, old women put their hands on their hearts, some began to cry. The music halted. All eyes turned. He had no guards, no fanfares, just a dust-stained white shirt and sandals. A silence fell over the arena so deep it felt like the earth itself paused to watch. Then the crowd slowly stood one by one, no claps, just reverence. And then an old man shouted, "He walks with us because he is one of us." The arena erupted in emotion. But the most unforgettable moment was still to come. Back at the VIP gate, the young security officer stood frozen. Someone had whispered in his ear. That was the president. His eyes widened, his mouth fell open. He looked down at the entrance list, in his hand no picture, no direct instructions. He thought he was just doing his job, but now his chest tightened, his knees grew weak. People began filming him. Some mocked him, others laughed. But suddenly, a firm hand touched his shoulder. He turned, and it was Traoré. "No one should blame you," Traoré said softly. "You did what was right. You followed the rules. Burkina Faso needs men like you." The guard's lips trembled. "I didn't know." Traoré Traoré embraced him genuinely, in public, with cameras watching. That one hug broke the internet. Within hours, hashtags began trending. Hashtag humble president and hashtag Zakwanapuskartov. But inside the arena, something even more stunning was happening. Ibrahim Traoré was about to step on stage, and he wasn't bringing notes. He was bringing something else. Something raw, heavy, and heartbreaking. When Ibrahim Traoré walked onto the stage, he carried nothing, no speeches, no folders, just a single photograph folded in his palm. The cheering died down. A deep silence took over the arena. He looked at the crowd, thousands of faces, young, old mothers, holding babies, students, soldiers, farmers, and then he held up the photograph. The crowd leaned in, waiting. It was an old image, faded, showing a little boy in torn sandals, standing in front of a broken mud house. This, Traoré said, was me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. He paused, letting the silence wrap around every heart. I wasn't born in a palace. I didn't grow up with power, he continued, pointing to the photo. That day, he said, his voice breaking, I ate once, and I drank from a cracked plastic bottle. But someone believed in me. My mother, my teachers, my neighbors. Burkina Faso believed in me. A woman in the audience began to sob, then another and another. No amount of titles, he went on, will ever separate me from where I came from. I am not your leader because I am above you. I am your leader because I walk with you. The entire arena stood not to cheer, but to cry. Behind the stage, there was a chair built especially for the president, carved from rare wood, polished for weeks, embroidered with gold thread. It was meant to honor Traoré, to show the nation's love. But as the applause grew louder, the chair remained empty. Traoré stood before it, looked at it, and shook his head. Slowly, he walked past it and sat on the simple wooden bench where the cleaning crew usually sat. The audience was stunned. What is he doing? Someone whispered. A little girl in the front row asked her mother, why won't he sit in his chair? Her mother, wiping her eyes, said, because his heart is bigger than that chair. Traoré looked at the people around him, mushers, stage workers, volunteers, and nodded at each one of them. I'm not here to be served, he said softly. I'm here to serve. The moment was captured on camera. The clip spread like wildfire. BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, Facebook, TikTok. Everyone asked the same question, is this the most humble president in the world? But what was coming next would shake the soul of the nation and the heart of the world. As Traoré sat quietly on the workers' bench, a whisper rose from the crowd. Did you see what he did? I've never seen a president sit there. Is he? Okay, then came a voice, soft and trembling, from the second row. It belonged to an elderly woman in her 70s. Her name was Awa Sanu, a retired midwife from Bobadulaso. She stood slowly, using a wooden cane, and asked the organizers if she could speak. At first they hesitated, but Traoré raised his hand. Let her speak. A microphone was handed to her. The arena fell silent again. She looked directly at the president. You don't know me, she began, her voice breaking. But years ago, when rebels burned my clinic and my husband was killed, you came. Traoré's eyes widened. You weren't a president then, just a soldier. But you carried my daughter 5 miles to safety. People gasped. Cameras zoomed in. Traoré looked stunned. And today, she continued, you showed the world again. You don't need a title to be great. You just need a heart. The crowd erupted in sobs. But Awa wasn't done. She had something in her bag, and it would break everyone. Awa slowly reached into her worn handbag. Out came a small white cloth, wrapped carefully in a plastic sleeve. It looked old and faded, but under the bright lights of the arena, something became clear. A brown-red stain crossed the middle. She held it up with trembling hands. This, she said, was the cloth you wrapped my daughter's foot in when she was bleeding. Traoré stood slowly. His face had gone pale. I never threw it away. Awa continued, crying, not because it was clean, but because it saved my daughter's life. The crowd fell silent. Even the camera crew wiped their eyes. Wow, walked forward, holding the cloth small, but the moment felt massive. She gently placed it in the president's hands. He knelt right there, in front of her, and whispered something only the cameras caught. I remember that day. I just didn't know it mattered this much. Awa embraced him like a mother hugging her son. And in that moment, there was no politics. No fame, no ceremony, just humanity. But the emotional wave wasn't over yet. Outside the arena, something incredible was happening. Traffic came to a stop not because of an accident, but because thousands of people, men, women, children, were walking toward the arena in silence. No one told them to come. They just heard. They heard about the bench, the speech, the cloth. It spread like wildfire on phones, radios, and loudspeakers in nearby markets. And they came. Some with candles, some with flowers, some with nothing but their bare feet. Inside, Traoré stepped out for air. What he saw made him stop breathing for a second. The street was full, but no one shouted. He simply stood, hands over hearts. As if saying thank you without words, a little boy, maybe 8 years old, ran forward. He wasn't holding a flag or a sign. He was holding his school report card. I want to give this to you, President, he said, because you're the reason I'm still in school. Traoré bent down, took the card gently, and hugged the boy. The cameras captured everything. In less than an hour, global media picked up the story. Tears fell quietly. Ibrahim Traoré stared at the photo, frozen. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn prayer bead, the same one the girl's father used to carry. I've kept this since the day he died in my arms, he said gently. I never forgot. Both hands, he gave it back to the little girl. She held it to her chest, then collapsed in tears. And just like that, no words were needed. That image went viral in minutes. But what the cameras didn't capture was this. Ibrahim Traoré cried too, not as a president, but as a brother, a soldier, and a man who remembered everything. After the emotional stories, night began to fall. Most thought the day was over, but Traoré stood once more and made an unexpected announcement. Tomorrow morning, I will walk. No cars, no soldiers, just me and anyone who wants to walk with me across the city. The organizers tried to advise against it. It was too risky, too disorganized. But Traoré simply said, let the people lead. I will follow. And so the next morning, just as the sun rose over Ouagadougou, the streets filled with thousands, not for protests, not for politics, but to walk with a man who had proven his heart. Mothers held children, old men brought flags, farmers, teachers, nurses, even the security guard from day one all came. It became known as the Silent March of the People. They walked through markets, past schools, hospitals, and cemeteries. Along the way, Traoré shook every hand he could. And when they reached the final stop, he turned and said, you don't need to raise your voices to be heard. Walk in truth, and the world will follow. But what he didn't know was that someone from outside the country had been secretly watching the entire week unfold, and they were preparing to speak next. Unknown to everyone in Burkina Faso, a young journalist from Segal, Mariam Dof, had arrived days earlier for the event. She was sent by an African news outlet to cover the ceremony, but what she witnessed went beyond headlines. She had filmed everything the moment Traoré was blocked at the gate, his silent kindness to the confused guard, his time with the orphan girl, the walk through the city, every gesture, every tear. She uploaded clips daily to her private channel. And now, after the silent march, her latest post read, I came to report on a leader. I found a father to the broken, a listener to the poor, and a heart the world forgot existed. The video went viral overnight. Millions of Africans shared it. Then came a surprise, an invitation from the African Union. They wanted Traoré to speak not about economics, not about politics, but about how to lead with heart. Traoré simply replied, let me first finish walking with my people. Even with the world watching, his eyes were still on home. The crowd waited for what he would do next. The final day of the event had arrived. Everyone expected a grand presidential speech, flags raised, the stage decorated, global media in attendance. But when Ibrahim Traoré finally stood on stage, he said nothing. Instead, he called up 5 ordinary citizens: the widow, the teacher, the street boy, the disabled girl, and the farmer from earlier in the week. One by one, they spoke for him, and the world watched in awe. No slogans, no applause, lines just truth, pain, hope, and honor. When it was his turn to speak, he looked into the crowd and said, "This country has enough of my voice. It's time we listen to yours. I am not here to be celebrated. I'm here to serve." Then he stepped back. The entire place went silent. Then, suddenly, applause broke out loud, endless, emotional. People cried openly. Many dropped their phones just to clap harder. That moment became known online as the speech that changed nothing and everything. But the biggest surprise of the week was still to come. Because right after that applause, he vanished from the stage. Traoré didn't stay for interviews, didn't take a photo with dignitaries, simply walked away, alone, into the crowd. People called out, but he just waved, smiling. Later, a young boy from a nearby village said he saw the president helping an old woman push a wheelbarrow near the back gate. That image of president in the dust pushing a wheelbarrow was captured by a teenager on a blurry phone camera. It became the most shared photo in West Africa that year. Underneath it, someone wrote, "Leadership is not a crown. It's a cloth you use to wipe the tears of your people." And that's how the week ended. No scandals, no drama, just one quiet man who showed that the loudest kind of power is silent compassion. From that day on, even those who once doubted him began to say, "That's my president, my amazing." Viewers, if this story touched your heart, if it made you cry, if it reminded you what real leadership can look like, please like this video. Leave a comment with your favorite part, and don't forget to subscribe, because more stories like this are coming. Let's make the world feel again. Let's honor our heroes. Let's remind the world who Ibrahim Traoré really is. See you in the next one.